All right, guys, welcome back to Dark Discoveries. I'm your host, Jimbo, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts.
Ladies first.
Well, we're waiting.
I'll try to play it back to me. I see how it is.
I'm Jackie, and the guy that can't talk
is Dustin, and I'm not Jackie.
All right.
I think I always go second, so I was trying to give you a chance to go second, be number 2.
I don't want to be a poo.
We already started with the poop
makes
jokes.
me number 3, and that's diarrhea. So that's what the wife always said. I'm like, you have to go 1 or 2. She's like, number 3.
I thought a 3 was a 1 and a 2 are together.
I'm like, we got to get you somewhere quick. So we just called it.
All right, ladies, tonight I'm bringing you the story of, well, we'll just get to it. I'm not even going to give it a name right now. I will give it to you at the end of it. So in the early months of America's involvement in World War II, the small coastal community of Pascagoula, Mississippi, was a town caught between pride and uncertainty. Like many communities across the United States, the residents of Pascagoula were adjusting to a new reality after the attack on Pearl Harbor brought America into the global conflict. Young men were leaving for military service. Families were following news from battlefields thousands of miles away, and industries across the country were being transformed into essential parts of the war machine. Yet Pascagoula was different from many small southern towns because its importance extended far beyond its size. Located along the Gulf Coast, the city was home to a major shipbuilding operation that produced vessels needed for the United States Navy. The work being done there was considered vital to the war efforts, and thousands of residents understood that their community played a role in determining the outcome of the worldwide conflict. Because of this importance, Pascagoula already existed under a cloud of anxiety. The possibility of enemy sabotage was not something Americans viewed as impossible during the early years of World War II. There were rumors of spies, secret agents, and attacks on American industry that were widespread. Communities near military installations and industrial facilities were especially alert, knowing that a successful act of sabotage could have consequences far beyond their own neighborhoods. Residents paid closer attention to unfamiliar people, unusual activity, and anything that seemed out of place. The war had created an atmosphere where fear could grow quickly, and in the summer of 1942, that fear would take a new and deeply personal form. So now that I set the stage, here we go. The first reports were unusual enough that many people initially struggled to believe them. There were no murders, no stolen possessions, and no obvious signs of traditional criminal behavior. Instead, residents began reporting that someone had broken into their homes, entered during the night, and cut their hair while they slept. The act itself was so strange that it seemed almost impossible to explain. Yes.
That's about as strange as the guy in Nashville that worked at the hotel that like somebody woke up and he was sucking their toes.
Yes. Yes.
I make sure when I go to Nashville, I do not stay at that hotel.
Yes.
That's creepy.
A burglar risked entering a house not to steal money or valuables, but this person appeared interested in something that had little obvious value. The intruder was not taking jewelry, cash, or important documents. The only thing left missing was a small piece of the victim's hair. I mean, as expensive as haircuts are today, come on into my house, buddy. Give me a little fade, right?
I'll shave it. I ain't gonna give you a fade. I got my own hair, but I'll shave it all off.
The earliest reports created confusion more than fear. People wondered whether these incidents were simply cruel jokes or a strange act of vandalism. Haircutting was not unheard of as a prank, especially among young people, but the circumstances surrounding these events were deeply disturbing. The person responsible was not cutting someone's hair while they were awake. The intruder was entering private homes, moving through bedrooms, and approaching sleeping victims without their knowledge. The violation was not only physical, but it was also psychological. Victims were forced to confront the terrifying realization that someone had been close enough to touch them while they were completely unaware. I'm a light sleeper.
Come on now, touch me, baby.
I'm a light sleeper. I don't know. If somebody's going to cut your hair, I think I'd wake up. That's just me personally. Dustin, what about you? No.
A tornado.
Jackie, could you hear somebody coming in?
I'm an extremely light sleeper, but I will tell you, there's nothing more terrifying than someone standing over you, especially when they are 6 years old, going in the dark. So giving her a pair of scissors to do that, I wouldn't be able to get out of bed. I'd be done for. It's terrifying.
Jackie now will suffer from sleep paralysis.
Yeah. That has happened.
So one of the earliest known victims was Mary Ellen, quote, Minnie, as she was known, Allen, whose experience helped begin the mystery that would eventually capture national attention. According to accounts from the period, Allen was asleep when an unknown individual entered her home during the night. The intruder moved quietly through the residence and approached her while she slept. At some point during the encounter, the person cut a portion of her hair and escaped. When the discovery was made, the shock came not from what had been taken, but from what the realization meant. Someone had entered the home without permission. Someone had stood near a sleeping person and committed an act that had no understandable purpose. As word began to spread, investigators began looking into whether the incident was isolated or part of something larger. At first, there was little evidence to suggest a connection between different reports. The crimes were unusual, but unusual crimes are not always connected. However, as more residents came forward with similar stories, a pattern began to emerge. The person responsible seemed to follow the same method each time, entering homes at night, approaching sleeping victims, cutting their hair, and leaving without taking anything else. You know, I kind of wonder how big these hair chunks were. If it's a woman, is he cutting like a long braid off? Or is he just taking like a little bangs?
Okay, that would make me mad. Do you know how long it takes to put these up?
I'll say cutting your pigtails off, you know, that'd be awesome.
I would be so mad.
But if you slept through it, you don't know until you go to the bathroom in the morning. Oh, you only got one pigtail hanging down, right?
Rough night, eh?
Yeah. The lack of a clear motive made the situation even more unsettling. Criminal investigators often began by asking one of the most basic questions. What did the offender want? In most cases, the answer provided direction. A thief wants valuables, of course. Someone seeking revenge has a personal target. A violent criminal usually has a recognizable motive. But, as I shall title this episode, the Phantom Barber seemed to operate outside normal expectations. The stolen hair was not worth money. It did not appear to serve any practical purpose. There was no message left behind and no obvious explanation for why these victims had been selected.
Maybe he just wanted to cut and smell her hair.
Maybe. Hopefully they shampooed. This uncertainty caused. Hey, it's better than cutting their hair than giving them a bikini wax or something, right? While they slept. This uncertainty caused fear to spread throughout Pascagoula. Residents were not simply worried about losing their property. They were worried about the idea that their homes, places that represented safety and privacy, could be entered without warning. The thought of waking up and discovering that a stranger had been standing beside their bed was terrifying enough, you know. So the fact, another fact about the intruder had escaped unnoticed in most situations was even worse. So the Phantom Barber was simply not simply committing strange crimes. He was creating a sense of helplessness. You know, and I wonder if back in this time, you know, I remember growing up, sometimes you didn't even have to lock your doors, right? Especially like in, you know, outside, you could leave your front door unlocked. You know, you can leave your back door unlocked, whatever. But these days, I wouldn't take the risk.
Mm-hmm.
But here we go. The case. Do what?
I always keep my door locked.
The case took a more serious turn with the incident involving the Howe family, an event that transformed the Phantom Barber from a local curiosity into a genuine public concern. Clyde and Gladys Howe lived in Pascagoula with their teenage daughter, Mary Elizabeth Howe. During one night in June of 1942, an intruder entered their home. As had happened in previous cases, the person moved silently through the residence and reached the sleeping victim. Mary Elizabeth was attacked while she was unaware, and the intruder cut her hair. However, this incident was different because the Phantom Barber's presence was discovered. The person fled before being captured, but investigators discovered evidence that suggests the crime had involved more than a simple act of haircutting. Reports indicated that a chemical substance believed to be chloroform had been used or attempted in the attack. This detail changed the entire perception of the case. Authorities now had reason to believe that the intruder was not merely trying to avoid detection, but was actively attempting to keep victims unconscious.
Chlorophyll, more like borophyll.
The possibility that the Phantom Barber could escalate beyond strange nighttime intrusions terrified the community. What had originally seemed bizarre now seemed dangerous. Residents began taking additional precautions. Doors and windows that may have been previously left open were secured. Families discussed the possibility of the intruder returning. Some residents began keeping weapons nearby, believing that they might need to defend themselves. The fear was no longer about losing a lock of hair. It was about not knowing what the person might do next. The media quickly became fascinated with this case. Newspapers throughout the region followed every development, and the unknown criminal received the nickname that would define the story for generations, the Phantom Barber. The name captured the strange nature of the crimes perfectly. The person seemed to appear from nowhere, enter homes without warning, and disappear before anything could identify him. The image of a mysterious figure moving through the darkness with scissors became a powerful symbol of fear in wartime Mississippi.
Just imagine, like, if those people were afraid of that, just imagine when they saw Brutus the Barber Beefcake on TV with them shears.
Hell yeah, cutting hair. However, increased attention also complicated the investigation. As stories about the Phantom Barber spread, more reports began appearing. Some may have been connected to the original crimes, while others may have been unrelated incidents influenced by the growing panic. When a community becomes frightened, rumors can spread very quickly, and ordinary events can take on new meaning. Investigators had to determine which reports represented genuine crimes and which were the result of fear and speculation. The investigation eventually focused on a local man named William Dolan, whose arrest would create a controversy that continues to surround this case. Authorities believe that they had found the person responsible for the Phantom Barber attacks. Dolan became the central figure in the investigation, and officials claimed that he had confessed to the crimes. For many residents, the arrest seemed to provide the answer that they had been waiting for. The mysterious intruder finally appeared to have an identity. However, the case against Dolan was not as simple as the public initially believed. The arrest of William Dolan appeared, at least temporarily, to bring an end to the fear that had consumed Pascagoula. After weeks of uncertainty, residents finally had someone to associate with the crimes. Newspapers reported the developments, and many people believed that the strange nighttime intrusions had finally been explained. However, as investigators examined the case more closely, questions began to emerge about whether the evidence truly proved that Dolan was the Phantom Barber, or whether the pressure to solve the mystery had influenced the direction of the investigation. William Dolan was not an unknown figure in the Pascagoula area. He was a local man with a complicated personal history, and authorities believed there were reasons to consider him a possible suspect. Investigators looked into his background, his relationships, and his activities during the time of the Phantom Barber attacks. In a case where physical evidence was limited, investigators relied heavily on interviews, witness statements, and Dolan's own words. The confession attributed to him became one of the most important pieces of evidence, but also one of the most debated aspects of the entire case. According to authorities, Dolan admitted involvement in the crime. This admission seemed to provide the breakthrough investigators needed. However, questions quickly rose about the circumstances surrounding the confession. The reliability of confessions has long been a complicated issue in criminal investigations, especially in a case where suspects may be under intense pressure. A confession can appear to solve a mystery, but investigators and historians must still examine whether the statement matches the known facts of the crime. In the case of the Phantom Barber, that examination created uncertainty. Some details connected to Dolan appeared suspicious enough for investigators to believe that they had the right person, but other aspects of the case remained difficult to explain. The crimes attributed to the Phantom Barber occurred over a period of time, and not every report incident could be clearly connected to Dolan. There was no overwhelming physical evidence that placed him at each location. There was no definitive trail proving that he was responsible for every attack. Instead, much of the case depended on interpretation. This became one of the greatest weaknesses of this investigation. The public demanded a solution, but solving a case and proving a case are not always the same thing. Authorities had identified a suspect, but identifying a suspect does not automatically answer every single question. The Phantom Barber mystery was built on unusual behavior, limited evidence, and a series of events that were difficult to reconstruct years later. The circumstances surrounding Dolan's arrest also reflected the environment of the time. Pascagoula was a community already under stress because of World War II. Residents were worried about possible threats, and the idea that a person could repeatedly enter their homes undetected created enormous pressure on law enforcement. Police were not simply investigating a strange crime. They were trying to restore a sense of security to a frightened population. When a community is desperate for answers, there can be a powerful desire for closure. The arrest of Dolan provided that closure for many people. The idea that the Phantom Barber had finally been caught allowed residents to feel the danger had passed by. Yet history has shown that public belief and historical certainty are not always the same thing. The trial and legal proceedings surrounding Dolan did not produce the kind of definitive conclusion many expected. Questions about the strength of the evidence continued to follow this case. Whether Dolan was responsible for all of the Phantom Barber attacks remained uncertain, and some people continued to doubt whether the mystery had even truly been solved. One of the reasons the Phantom Barber case has survived in public memory is because it occupies an unusual place between fact and legend. Unlike many famous criminal cases, there was never a clear and a universally accepted explanation. The basic events are well documented. People reported nighttime intrusions, victims discovered that their hair had been cut, fear spread throughout Pascagoula, and William Dolan became the main suspect. But beyond those facts are decades of debate about what actually happened. Some researchers believe Dolan was almost certainly responsible. They point to the investigation, the alleged confession, and the belief that authorities had sufficient reason to arrest him. From this perspective, the Phantom Barber was not a mysterious figure who disappeared forever. He was a local man whose crimes were eventually uncovered. Others, though, remained unconvinced. They argued that the evidence was too weak and that the case may have been influenced by the need for quick resolution. They questioned whether one person could have been responsible for every single reported incident and whether fear caused some unrelated events to become connected to the Phantom Barber legend. There's also the possibility that the crimes involved a person whose motives were never fully understood. Modern criminal psychology has shown that some offenders commit unusual crimes driven by personal obsessions that do not make sense to outsiders. The collection of hair, the act of entering private spaces, and the risk involved could suggest a psychological motivation rather than a practical one. The Phantom Barber may not have been interested in the hair itself, but rather the act of taking something personal from victims without their knowledge. The idea of the intruder being physically close to sleeping victims remains one of the most disturbing aspects of this case. Many crimes create fear because of what happens afterward, but the Phantom Barber created fear because of what victims realized had already happened. The danger had already been inside their homes. The violation occurred before anyone knew there was a threat. And, of course, don't forget there was also chloroform involved in one of the cases as well. So the aspect of this case connects the Phantom Barber to a much broader human fear, a fear that the places where we feel safest may not be completely secure. A locked door represents protection. A bedroom represents privacy. A home represents refuge from the outside world. The Phantom Barber challenged all of those assumptions. He turned ordinary nights into moments of uncertainty. The case also demonstrates how crimes are shaped by the time period in which they occurred. If the Phantom Barber had appeared during a different era, the public reaction might have been different. Like if he tried today, he might have got shot. But in 1942, America was already living through the uncertainty and fear. The country is fighting a global war, and people were constantly reminded the danger could appear unexpectedly. The Phantom Barber did not just frighten residents because of what he did. He frightened them because his actions fit into a larger atmosphere of anxiety. Over time, the Phantom Barber became part crime story, part local legend, and the mystery continues to attract writers, historians, and researchers who attempts to determine what truly happened in Pascagoula during those strange nights in 1942. The story remained fascinating because it contained all the elements of a great mystery, an unknown intruder, unusual crimes, frightened victims, a controversial suspect, and unanswered questions. Unlike many infamous criminals, the Phantom Barber did not become famous because of the number of victims or the severity of the violence. The case endured because it was strange. The crimes were personal, but not obviously motivated by revenge or profit. The offender invaded private spaces, but did not appear interested in traditional criminal rewards. The victims were left physically unharmed in most cases, yet psychologically disturbed by the realization that someone had entered their lives in the most intimate way possible. Now, more than 80 years later, the questions remain. Was William Doley truly the Phantom Barber of Pascagoula? The answer depends largely on how one interprets the evidence. Those who believe Dolan was responsible see the case as solved, involving a bizarre offender whose unusual crimes made him unforgettable. Those who question the official explanation see the case as another example of an investigation where fear, public pressure, and limited evidence created more questions than answers. The truth may never be known with complete certainty. The person who terrorized Pascagoula in 1942 may have been identified, or the real Phantom Barber may have escaped recognition entirely. What remains undeniable is the impact of the events that had on the community and the way the story has continued to capture attention. The Phantom Barber of Pascagoula remains a reminder that history is not always defined by the largest crimes or the most violent acts. Sometimes the mysteries that stay with us are the ones that challenge our understanding of the human behavior. They are the stories where the facts are clear enough to know something happened, but incomplete enough that questions remain. In the summer of 1942, a quiet Mississippi community discovered that fear does not always arrive with warning. Sometimes it arrives silently in the middle of the night. Sometimes it leaves behind no obvious evidence except a few missing strands of hair and a question that echoes through generations. Who was the person standing in those bedrooms while the town slept? And why did the Phantom Barber take only one thing? Hair. That simply unsettling detail transformed an unusual crime spree into one of America's strangest mysteries, a mystery that remains unsolved in the minds of many and continues to remind us that some shadows from the past never completely disappear.
I think that's just a case of someone who got a bad haircut and they're just trying to cover it up.
Well, if it was just one person, I could see that, but not when it's several people. I mean, have you ever had, I know Jackie had one just probably last year or something where a stranger just came right into the door, remember? And that's
that was scary.
That's unsettling enough. And that was in the middle of the day. But doing that in the middle of the night while everybody's sleeping would be something terrifying.
That's the perk of an old house. You move and it creaks.
But see, this also reminded me of like our Lizzie Borden case, right? The people it's basically got people divided too about, is this the guy? Is this not the guy? Did Lizzie do it? Did Lizzie not do it? You know, they wanted that speedy trial in her, you know, they just wanted somebody found guilty. And then when she was, you know, found not guilty or whatever, it just kept going on and on and on. So I don't know. What do you think, Jackie?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's just, I don't know. It's creepy because it's very personal, and it just makes me wonder why they needed all that hair. I mean, you know what? I don't want to know. There's a reason, and I don't want to know.
I wonder if he kept the hair as collection, you know, like a butterfly collection. Hey, look at this hair. Look at this pigtail. Look at this bangs.
Yeah, just pin it on the wall.
Yeah.
That'll look nice.
Or made a beard out of it all.
Ooh, fancy. It's a wig maker.
Yeah. Dustin?
I don't know. It's too odd to even fathom.
Yeah, it's creepy. It's like, I would almost feel better if they were breaking in and taking something in a house as opposed to
stealing my
off
underwear
a person.
But not and taking the hair.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, it's just very interesting. So I don't know. We'll have to find out. Jackie, did you have anything to share with us tonight?
You know, it's funny that you wanted to talk about a creepy guy. You know, I was in the mood for a strange case myself, and many people don't know this, but the guys and I don't tell each other what we're recording. We
True.
just get together and we are like, hey, I have a story, and we go. And based off of what the first person does is kind of where the direction of the podcast goes. So I've got a little bit of a fun one for you. So in April of 2015, not that long ago, one of the most lucrative heists I'm talking about heists, Dustin, you better get back here, in British history took place at the Hatton Garden Jewelers Quarter in London. Over the course of the Easter bank holiday, a gang of professional criminals disguised as tradesmen, they accessed safety deposit box, climbed down the lift shafts to the basement, and burrowed into the vault using heavy-duty diamond drills. They used crowbars and angle grinders to bust open all these deposit boxes, making off with almost $14 million worth of jewelry and cash. But there's a little bit you should know about this. The gang was led by Brian Rader, John Collins, Daniel Jones, and Terry Perkins. They carefully disabled elevators, security systems to avoid detection. Over the course of the 4-day weekend, they looted 73 safe deposit boxes, taking gold, cash, diamonds, family heirlooms, only of which $4.3 million worth have actually ever been recovered.
Is this all from the same? Is this all from the same vault? Jeez.
Yes. So originally, it's estimated at least $14 million worth of stuff was taken, and only $4.3 million has ever been recovered. The thieves methodically approached with patience and knowledge of the building's security, which made this heist particularly audacious and difficult to initially detect. The investigation was led by the flying squad, and the burglary was described as the largest in English legal history. Surveillance and forensic teams eventually led them to the identification and arrest of the 6 main perpetrators, all of which pled guilty and received prison sentences in March of 2016. But who were these men? A little bit of background on these burglars, if we can. Many of these men were involved in long criminal histories, including participation in previous high-profile heists, such as the Brinkmats robbery in 1983 and the Security Express raid. Brian Rader, the oldest member, was 77 when the heist took place. He had previously stolen from the Brinkmat gold bullion robbery. So he was already like a very well-established guy. These guys were 77. Okay.
You got
Harry
gold bullion.
Perkins.
Why are you trying to steal anything else?
As well, they made off with $14.3 million. They did pretty darn good for a 4-day weekend. Their experience and age contributed to the public's fascination with this heist. They were often referred to as the Granddad Gang, the Bad Dad Army, and what was the other one? Hang on, I gotta find it.
The Geriatric Gentleman.
Diamond Weezers.
Oh, I like that one.
Fantastic is that one. It was like, oh my God, these guys are amazing. So, yeah. All of London was in a fury over this. They actually believed it to be another criminal empire that was running at the time out of Balkan, and they were called the Pink Panthers. So this elite group, they just couldn't believe when this broke. Now, how they were caught is kind of funny. It was eventually the surveillance that did them in.
The liver spots, and they could turn them in.
Right, possibly. So the police were able to pinpoint one of the vehicles using CCTV that had planted listening devices to observe burglars and gather evidence. They as one copper put it, they were analog criminals operating in the digital age, which, kind of makes me sad because these guys are actually kind of cool. The more I read about them, the more I fell in love with them. How were they caught? Let's find out real quick here. So even after the heist, some of the stolen goods began to appear in the marketplace. Pawn shop transactions and other sales provided the police with tangible evidence linking all of the burglars to the loot. Tips from the pawn shops. One of the most critical breaks came from a tip-off of the pawn shop owner. This seemingly minor detail actually helped detectives trace back almost a full $1 million worth of their information or their missing loot on top of most of the suspects. The CCTV footage, along with the everyday interactions and visible clues that were used to identify these older men. The footage showed them by their nicknames, which were Mr. Ginger, Mr. Strong, the Old Man. They later were matched to the arresting subjects. The crew was very experienced, but they made some pretty big mistakes. John Kenny Collins narrated his own crimes in a bugged car. It was later used as evidence. Carl Wood walked out halfway through the job when things got tough. And Daniel Jones took selfies with a bunch of the loot that he had buried in a cemetery. So, their age did kind of do them in a little bit there. They didn't quite understand.
What are you doing? I'm taking a selfie where I'm hiding my shit so I can find it later.
I gotta remember where I put this when I get.
I'm posting it on MySpace so I can remember.
Yes. So, all right. So what's even funnier is they actually made a movie about these guys. The oldest member of the group, who was 77 at the time, Brian Rader, has become the face of the Hatton Garden Heist, and it's played by Sir Michael McCain and Larry Lamb in the film based on the crime. Wall Rader is known as the mild-mannered, unassuming sort of man. He was deeply entrenched in the criminal world and had previously done time for handling stolen goods, especially the Brinks Matt Gold bullion robbery in 1983. Handed just over a 6-year prison sentence for his role in the Garden Mastermind heist, Rader was released after serving half of his sentence. For a while, it looked like he might have been given a further sentence for failing to pay the multi-million-dollar pound confiscation order that had been imposed on the heist ringleader to recover all the ill-gotten gains. However, severe poor health, he basically got out and he didn't have to do any of that. Another member, Terry Perkins, he celebrated his 67th birthday the weekend of the garden job, exactly 32 years after he had taken part in another gigantic raid, the $6 million armed robbery of the London Security Depot. Perkins had been handed a 22-year sentence for that one, but he got out of jail in 1995 and managed to evade recapture until 2012.
Wow.
Despite suffering heart problems and diabetes, Perkins was an enthusiastic member of the Hatton Garden Gang, with the police recording him boasting, saying, "If we get nicked, at least we can hold our heads up high. We got to go out one last good fling." Which, you know what? That's a pretty freaking sweet sentence. I must say so myself. Danny Jones, who was 61 at the time of sentencing, Danny was known as one of the more eccentric villains in the London underworld. According to the court testimony, Jones would go to bed in his mother's dressing gown with a fez on. I don't know why. I don't know. And had a penchant for having human conversations with his dog. Everybody does that, don't they?
What are you doing, boy?
What are you doing? You do good boy. Yeah.
Who's a good little boy?
You're a good boy. And so he had
a
a extensive criminal record, including the 1982 conviction of a jewelry robbery valued at almost $100,000. He was handed initially 7 years for his part in the heist, and Jones was later given almost another 7 for failing to pay off the confiscation order to cover some of the recouped assets they needed. But he is now a free man and has been out since 2022. John Kenny Collins was 75, and he was given a 7-year sentence for his part in the heist. He was a career criminal with fraud and robbery convictions going back as late as the 60s. Collins took his trips to the jewelry district and led up the operations and acted like the lookout for others. It was later said that he had fallen asleep on the job. And of course, when asked, he's dismissed this, but everyone else says that he really did. Collins was released after serving half of his initial sentence. But in 2019, he was slapped with another 6-year sentence for failing to pay off his part of the confiscation order. I recognize that Mr. Collins is in his 70s, said the judge. It was entirely his decision to commit the crime at the time of his life when most people hope to enjoy a quiet retirement. Fair. All right. And Mr. Michael Basil Seed, known at the time as the Ghost, because he evaded police the longest. Basil Seed was finally arrested in 2019, 3 years after his partners in crime had been put away. Seed was very much the odd man of the group. He was relatively young. He was 58 when he was jailed. And from the middle-class background, his father was actually a Cambridge University scientist. So he had the privileged background that all the other guys did not. A electronic expert who thought that he had disabled Hatton's Garden's facility security system. He was given 10 years for his part. And in 2022, he was actually handed an additional 6 years for not paying back his confiscation order. Last but not least, Carl Wood. 2 of the Hatton Garden burglars actually pulled out of the raid halfway through for fear of being caught. One of them was ringleader Brian Reeder, and the other was the more junior member of the team, Carl Wood. He was a veteran villain who had done time in the early 2000s for conspiring with corrupt coppers to kidnap and assault a money launderer. However, at the time of the Hatton Garden, Wood was on a disability benefit and he was in a ton of debt. It did not move the judge to cut him any slack, and at age 59, he was jailed for 6 years. All of these men are currently out, which is insane to me. I love it. I want to meet them. I think that this is the most insane story, and I would just love to sit and have dinner with these guys. I mean, granted, I would probably be robbed blind, but I would love to just listen to their stories because they've got to be pushing their 80s by now. They were in their 70s when they were arrested. And just to hear some of their stories. I mean, they've been doing this since the 60s. This is nuts.
It's crazy.
So that is the story of the Hatton Garden burglars, some of the oldest criminals out there.
That's like I'm thinking, if Brett and Carl from the Evil Never Dies podcast and me and Dustin, we'd be called the Over the Hill Gang or something, right? Dustin would be the getaway driver.
I'm not that old.
I love the Diamond Weezers. I'm like,
I know.
I was like, I would wear that like a badge of honor. What a fun name. So, but yeah, I thought you guys might like that. It was a little different heist and just cool guys. I mean, I know that we shouldn't like the criminals, but daggone it, that's kind of a fun one.
I mean, and they're 77. I probably won't even be able to walk when I'm 77.
Arrested. That was 6-7 years ago. They're older now. It's crazy.
I wonder if they still get together and be like, hey, you guys, you remember that one time we pulled that heist off? That was cool. Let's do it again.
Their stories would be something.
I would not be surprised if they die in a shootout with police trying to rob a bank or something.
Oh,
For sure. They're not going quietly into the retirement home anytime soon. Yeah, no, these guys are the kind of guys that everybody talks about after they're gone. This is fun.
Oh, yeah.
There are modern day Bonnie and Clydes, I guess. I love it. I think it's great. I wish I'd have heard of this story when it was going on because it's so crazy and so wild. And I just think it's so fun that there's a movie about these guys even now too. So do check it out. Yeah, you'll fall in love with them too. They're just
seems about as exciting as Ocean's 11.
That's what I was getting ready to say. I was like, is this Ocean's 11?
I found that to be
fun. It's like, yeah,
boring.
You know what? I gotta say though, I mean, like 5 guys this old that have been doing crime this long, and they got away with $14 million worth of stuff. Oh. Only $4 million has ever been recovered. Where's the other $10 million? It's insane.
Why didn't they just leave the country?
Oh, well, they were bragging about it.
I know, but still.
14 million 5 ways is still enough for them to survive.
Police had to know something was up. I mean, they bugged the cars and everything. They had to have like their eye on them. But nonetheless, I mean, it's wild. I think it's amazing.
Can you imagine the video camera footage is probably with walkers? That wasn't me, Your Honor. Yeah, it wasn't me, Your Honor.
You gotta have one of just the cane, like a hurricane.
Yes. So no, but the Hatton Garden Burglars. If you ever get the chance, definitely check them out. They are pretty cool.
Awesome. Yes. Well, Jackie, do you have an episode or a missing girl or missing child for this episode?
Man, I get the whole episode last time and nothing on this one.
Yep, you get nothing. Nada.
What happened?
I don't know. It's almost like he wasn't here for half the episode.
No, was here the whole time.
Through the power of the internet.
All right.
I guess we'll have to learn about the story of the Blue Lady another time.
Sounds good.
Oh, okay. Sounds very nice. Okay, so we are actually looking for a older case. I don't normally do these, but I wanted to shout out this one just because it is the family's request, which is pretty special. They are looking for Bernard Ross, and he's actually been missing since May 12th of 1977.
Wow.
His current age now would be 68. This particular case is actually coming out of Maine. It is missing child case number 1154562. Bernard's last photo shown has a age progression. He was last seen May 12th of 1977. He has blue eyes and he had shaggy brown hair. We will also put up his poster, but his family is still looking for him. This is still an active case. If you know anything, you can contact the Ashland, Maine police station at 207-532-5400, or you can contact the 24-hour call center at 1-800-843-5678, and that is the missing center for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
And how old was he when he went missing?
He would have been. He was 17 when he went missing.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's never too late to solve a missing person. So, absolutely. If you have any information, please contact the numbers that we gave, or if you want to send information our way, we'll pass along to the proper authorities.
Could be, could still be alive and well and out there thriving. So,
well, I'm reminded of that. There was a lady recently, right, that disappeared back 30 years ago, and they actually found her, and she's like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want nothing to do with, she just walked away from her family and everything. So I don't know.
It happens. Yeah.
It gets a little crazy on that, but it's at any point, any type of closure.
Just to know where they are, if they're alive, is peace of mind. Mm-hmm. And even if they're not, that in itself is peace too.
Yeah, it's to bring closure. So,
Absolutely.
Dustin, where can they find us on the social medias?
Glad you asked. You can definitely find us on your favorite podcast platforms. You can maybe even find us on YouTube here in the near future. So check it out. Listen to an episode on YouTube. Leave a comment. You can maybe find us on Instagram or TikTok. I doubt it.
Dustin doesn't keep up with TikTok anymore.
Dude, it's hard. Like social media is just, it's a lot to take on. You could interact with us probably just on the Dark Discoveries, the private group. So if you answer the questions, hopping in there, more conversation, with other people, with us. The Dark Discoveries, the official page on, Facebook, doesn't hurt to go there as well. But 2027 will be the year of social media.
Uh-oh. Is that a Dustin guarantee?
We'll see. It's as good as a Joe Exotic guarantee.
Oh.
Speaking of that, are we ever going to get Joe Exotic? We ever going to get Joe Exotic on the show?
They moved prison, so I don't know what's going to happen.
Oh, no.
He's in Lexington, Kentucky now, and
we can just go visit him.
I think he's pissed some people off where he probably don't get to do much anymore.
Oh, no, not Joe.
That doesn't surprise me.
Say it ain't so, Joe.
Joe Exotic guarantee. I'll give you the best pizza, pasta, and chicken Alfredo.
I wonder if I can go. I wonder if I can go visit
meat in the back. Yep.
I wonder if he's allowed visitors.
I don't know, but you'd have to get on the list and you got to register.
Maybe I'll see about doing that. We'll go for a road trip, Dustin. Yes, you do.
I'd go with you, but I don't want to talk to him. I think I'd get pissed off at him.
I think you were supposed to talk to people about Waverly that we've not heard nothing about.
Been working on it. Been working on it. It's packed right now, dude. And they opened up a new what's it called? Escape room there too. And it's just been sold out since.
I just did an escape room this weekend.
And you lost.
Did not survive.
I seen that.
Yep.
You didn't have the brains of the podcast with you. That's why you lost, Jackie. That's all we're saying.
I tell you what, there was 12 of us and we did pretty good. We were originally supposed to do a castle, but we got there late. And so we ended up having to do a POW camp. And we were like, uh-oh, this isn't good. And it only had a 5% escape rate. And we were like, oh, we are not making out. We were close, but we did not make it out. So it was good. But we got most of the.
Jackie is the weakest link of the podcast. She just said it herself.
You know what? You got to own your own personality and mistakes and let it come to life.
You have to know your strengths and your weaknesses. Just remember that.
Yep. And I know all my weaknesses very well.
But until next time, this has been Dark Discoveries.
Where the
deeper you dive,
the darker it gets.